So, aside from the technical issues that we're running into, we figure we might as well get this thing started.
Sure.
My name is Dylan. I'm the technical support with Jim for New Tracks. And tonight we've got Tom Kane. So, Tom, tell us, what are you joining us here for tonight? I know, but we'd like to hear from you.
Sure. Here in the Central Indiana Division, I'm the Achievement Award Chairperson, which means that part of my role is encouraging other members to work on their Achievement Award. I have 5 of the certificates, and they're the author, volunteer, official, electrical, and chief dispatcher, but I don't have any of the modeling certificates yet. And I think the modeling is going to be either what I consider scenery or structures, rolling stock or locomotives. And I do consider those to probably be the hardest ones to get. But I think that they're essential to be considered a master modeler as opposed to a master NMRA member. But I'm making progress on them. I've done a number of entries, particularly in rolling stock and in locomotives. I've done, I think, over a dozen entries in NMRA contests. Right now, I've got 2 that are Achievement Award level, 87.5 or greater, both in rolling stock. But those are really quite a while back. I've just been putting a lot of effort in the other areas. But I'm going to show you a little bit of the work I've been doing in regard to structure right now. But then I do want to talk a little or get some feedback or hear from some of you guys about the judging piece of the Achievement Award process. But we'll start with just me sharing with you guys some of the work that I've been doing. And Dylan, it says here, host has disabled screen sharing. So
Let me fix that.
Yeah, if you can take that off for me anyway.
There you go. That should do it. You should be able to share the screen.
All right, let's try that again. All right. Do you have my screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that looks excellent.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to share with you some of the modeling that I've done. These are design preservation models kits, and basically this all you're looking at here is the storefront. And you see my cursor here?
Yep.
All right, cool. I put lighting over each of the doors, and that's just a LED light. And I've got some pictures that I put behind the windows, so it looks like there's something going on there. I don't know how much that shows up or not.
It shows up rather well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right now, I haven't completely attached everything to the layout because my sidewalk, as you can see, is kind of floating above the street. So that'll be taken care of later. But let's go on to the next picture. The main reason that I did this particular model is along the wall of my basement, I have a pillar that's along the wall that supports the load-bearing beam that goes across part of the basement. And all you're seeing here is the front and the sides because they're really wrapped around that beam. And if you look up there, you can kind of see it. And if you go back here a little bit further, can you still see the corner piece right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the other part of the corner. But they do a nice job of kind of making that corner disappear in that particular scene. So the other thing I wanted to share with you then is there's the backdrop. And these are pictures that I just took out of Google Images. And this is a restaurant here. And I just actually took it to duplicated it and put it in there. These are just images out of what looked like an antique shop, and these are just kind of upstairs, like interior of an apartment or a house. And I just used dry mount adhesive. I just sprayed, I figured out where they needed to be and put the dry mount adhesive on the back of it and just put it right up there against the wall. So then when I put the model back into the corner, you're looking through the windows and you can see that. A couple other things I just kind of discovered too. The name of the little restaurant here, Rashidi's or whatever it is, I cut that out, just printed it on my inkjet printer, and got it as small as I could get it where it could still look like I could see it. And I laid it down on the acetate or the whatever it is that I was using there, and just put Tester's liquid glue on it, just totally saturated, made sure it was exactly where I wanted it to be. And it both completely bonded it to the back side of the surface. I've been working on doing this from the back side, and what was amazing to me is that the glue didn't cause any bleeding into the plastic or anything. I mean, the color stayed fast, which is pretty amazing with the inkjet printer as opposed to what's the other kind?
Laser.
Yeah, laser printer, but I wouldn't have worried about that at all. But inkjet, I certainly was worried. But of course, I tested that on a scrap piece of plastic before I put it on the model. So, but anyway, so that's just glued on there with liquid glue. The address is, and there's a little sample menu there, and the same thing with the antiques. That's just all printed there. When we did the picture of the interior, there's nothing up here in the other window. But what I did was I took just something out of a magazine that was just a pattern, and I put the smallest wrinkles that I could in it, just folds, and then put that up against the, I taped those to the back of that backdrop there to make it look like there were curtains there, because I wanted it just to be a little bit different. So then the other thing to share here is the model as it's being put together. The LED lights, there's the little magnet wire that goes in, just drilled a hole under the above the door, and I took a resistor and went ahead and soldered the wires to the 1,000 ohm resistor and put it up there. And then just after it was all wired together, I put that up into the wall and used super glue just to put it into place. So literally, this goes up in the wall. There's hardly anything that that is keeping that from being as flush as possible there. So there's a resistor there for this light, and then over further here for the other light, there's another resistor. The wires then run down and then go into a hole just right along that post in the.
Now, what type of resistor is that? I can't say I've seen one that looks like that before.
That's a surface mount resistor. I think it's like 1206 size. Does that ring a bell? Does anybody else have? Okay, I'm going to go get it off my other workbench. It'll just take me like 30 seconds.
All right.
That's like a printed circuit board resistor.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But that's actually kind of clever. That looks like the same resistors that they use on the circuit boards or some of the circuit boards that we have to deal with, or that I've dealt with.
Yeah, it's all for automatic mounting machines.
Yeah.
So here's I don't know if you've heard of the company Engineering. That's like a pack that has 20 resistors in there. But honestly, this is the way I buy resistors for I use resistor wheel sets on my cars for detection.
Oh yeah.
So this was like, this is what's left of a roll of 1,000 resistors. And it looks like I'm down to like maybe a couple hundred now. But yeah, it's a surface mount resistor. And I think it's called a 1206. That's the size designation.
That's helpful. I could actually make use of those.
What?
I can make use of those.
Oh yeah, there. And gosh, this roll of 1,000 resistors, I think, cost me like $8 or something.
That's nothing.
So that's pretty cool, which I think beats the heck out of this is a TCS quarter watt resistors. This is what I used to use for LEDs in locomotives, but you know, that's probably what you're more used to seeing in the way of resistors.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but they do the same thing now in that little surface mount thing, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's the back side of that. I thought I had another picture of the model as I was building it, but that's okay. All right. This is the same the building now, kind of wrapped around that post. You see the side of it. I'll eventually have a backdrop painting or some kind of a scenery image back there, plus over here needs to do that to fill that out. The next little thing I'm going to show you is this little gas station convenience store here. I think I've got the next picture is a better close-up with that. Yeah. And we had at the CID a popular judging contest that was a 100-foot by 100-foot model. So everybody could do any kind of a scale model on a block of wood or whatever that was 100 feet by 100 feet, scale feet. So in other words, like it's about 13 inches if you're an HO scale, probably about 7.5 inches if you're doing N scale. It was like over 3 feet if you're doing O scale, and whatever you wanted to do. And so this was a little project that I did, and didn't need to be scratch built. It was just whatever you want to do. But this is a place on the layout where I wanted to have something like a gas station behind the railroad tracks. And so the whole concrete piece here, that's the base, lifts out, and it went into the little contest module that I had. And then I had a 12-volt power pack that plugged in, because I've got 2 lights under the little shield or the cover over the gas pumps. You can see the light from those, but it's not real bright. I had light inside the structure, which doesn't show up as well. The gas pumps are commercial, and I can't remember. I can't remember who makes those, but those were commercial. But this is just basic styrene brick. The downspouts are just brass wire. The vertical parts of the, what do we call that? A shed? Not a shed, but a
canopy.
Yeah, canopy. There you go. Thank you. That's just a evergreen tubing, and I used 2 different sizes that telescoped into each other. So I was able to put the wiring in for the LED lights. They're the same kind of surface mount lights that I was showing, that those resistors, and they were put in there, and then I put another layer of plastic over the top of that so you wouldn't see them. And then the wires for the LED lights go down the pole, so I had to like kind of string it, and then after it's in place, the wiring goes up into the structure. If you take the roof off, you can see more of the resistors and that kind of stuff in there. But I also then had a light in the back. And so here you can see my buildings over there, but you can see here again, the light under the canopy and the light over the back door. And this is another surface mount LED there that's wired through there. And that was kind of what that little scene ended up looking like, right behind the railroad tracks. This is a lumber yard that I've worked on, and this is the Atlas lumber yard, which is I think it's a really neat model if you're familiar with it. It actually comes with a separate little office building, but I wanted to have one that was actually built or attached to the lumber yard. And this is 2 lumber yard sheds that are put there positioned next to each other. And I think probably like 10 or 15 years ago, or 20 or 25 years ago, someone did a similar project to this that was in Model Railroader magazine, where he used more than more than one of the very same model. And by putting them side to side and putting the roofs over there, I was able to get this kind of breezeway between the 2 lumberyard sheds that I thought was kind of a nice thing. And in that breezeway, part of the kit, oops, moving the wrong thing. Part of the kit is a little table saw thing here.
Oh,
It doesn't really show up that well, but there's a wood bench. It's all part of the kit. Wood bench, and there's a table saw, and there's a framing square on there, and a saw that you just have to hand paint. I'm going to give myself away here. Here's what they look like if you just paint over them, leave them there. But I'm going to eventually put a advertisement sign over that for the lumberyard. But I also put like a light over the table saw because I thought that would make sense to do that. We do have a fella in our area here that has built resin lumber castings. So I've got some of those in there along with some other just wood that I've bought that's really very good for modeling that. I'm going to go back to I want to show you something else I did with regards to I really wanted to have, I'm really trying to fill out some of the scenes with some of the things there. And this little forklift, I don't know who makes that, but I found it at a train show. And there's like in one of those little boxes of just Hot Wheels cars and stuff like this. But this is a nice little model. Mm-hmm. And I drilled out the holes. The depressions were already there, but I drilled out the holes for ventilation, and I repainted the whole thing as opposed to just leaving at the bare plastic. And I built my own roll cage over the vehicle because any of them would have that. And in fact, I went on Google Images and found a very similar looking forklift and used that to kind of guide how I built the roll cage for that. So here's the other end of that lumber yard. So I've got some vehicles in there. I love this little El Camino pickup that found that just along the way. All right, the next little project I want to show you is a high rail truck that I worked on. This is the real high rail truck here. And this is at Joliet, Illinois. And the guy has pulled up on the platform between the tracks there. A couple of the tracks have a pretty good space in between them. And I thought this high rail truck looked pretty cool. So I got several pictures of it. And this right here is what I've come up with for that high rail truck. And this is what it started out with. This is a Boley. Is that I think Boley makes a lot of vehicles, and their scale, and they have a nice look to them, but very few of them are particularly railroad themed. Some of them are like utilities or tree trimming, that kind of thing. And this is a fire truck. And so I came in and I cut the back half of this truck off and removed the light bar, removed the bumper here, and added quite a few parts to this. The whole back part of this is both kit bashed or scratch built. And this is kind of another view of it. This crane here is probably made up of about 20 different pieces of styrene that I cut, sanded, or figured out how to do in there. The piston here is a piece of a straight pin, like from a wide foot. But like the piston on any kind of a hydraulic thing is going to be very shiny. So I thought that was pretty good. And this little guy actually just drops down into this piece that I built in there, so it actually can move, and it has a rest that it can rest on. And if we go back to the original picture, here is a vertical column, and then over the roof there's a place here you can lay a section of rail in here. So if you're taking rail out to work on, so here I've built that up there, and he's carrying a rail here. He's going to pick up another one, put it in there. So I just thought that was a fun little project, and didn't mean to go to the next picture, but there it is. This is a river on the layout, and I used it's not matte medium, but it's you get it at Michael's Hobby or any other kind of place, and it's an acrylic, and I painted the river brown because out here when it rains, the rivers they're pretty brown, they're pretty muddy, and so that's what that depicts. If there's water in it, it's going to generally be muddy, so that's what it is. And the material you pour in there, just brush in. You can just keep adding layer after layer, and it comes out pretty nice. It looks like water would be, and you can even see the reflection like you would see in a river. So that's a microengineering bridge there. You can actually see some of the plywood right there. Sorry about that. So those are some of the projects that I have been working on. I'm going to just hold up a model for you to look at. So now, are we all back to the regular view? Okay. I have a place on the layout where I needed a house, but I don't. On model railroads, you never have enough space for the full kind of what you would maybe need or do. This is what's called it's like a modern house. What is it called? Contemporary house. And this is Plasticville. And I bought this. This is sort of what I wanted to do. I bought this just at a trade show. It's already built up and everything. This is the kit. So this is the starting point. This is the kit. And to save space, this is where I've gone to. So I've got to hold these up. I cut part of this off here between the fireplace and the front door. And what you see is like a wood trim here. I totally took that out and used, it's right as evergreen siding again. And I didn't care for the deck over the garage, so I just made more house there. And actually, I have a deck or a patio that's behind the house, which I don't have with me, but it's just a piece of that same styrene. The roof was probably the biggest challenge, because the roof that came with it wasn't going
Oh, yeah.
Totally different profile.
the shingles to me look like they're like 18 inches. Well, I don't know, maybe that's the right scale, but they look real large for me. So here again, I use the evergreen or plastric shingle material for the roof. And so this is pretty close to being ready to go on the layout, although I'm putting lighting in it. This is the back, so there's going to be a light over each of the doors in the back, a light over the front door,
Mhm.
and a light in the garage. I'm going to leave the garage door open, so it has a car sitting in there. And then I've got a couple lights that will be in the big room there. So, and with those, I use a 12-volt power supply, and then I use those, each LED is going to have one of those surface mount detectors. And there's a kit, and here again, well, you can get surface mount board that you can then just solder those resistors onto them to any number that you want to use. And that's how I'll manage the lighting for that. So that's what I've been working on. But the other thing, I guess I'm curious, I'd like to hear from you guys in when it comes to judging or being judged on models, kind of what your experiences have been with that. Like I said, I've had 17 pieces that have been judged. I've only gotten 2 that have hit the achievement award level. But I understand that it takes practice. You have to kind of work on it to get better at it. And I'm feeling more confident with every project that I do. One of the things that's been a kind of a frustration for me is I've had a couple of people in our own division that have been judged that didn't feel like that they were being given enough credit as what they wanted to. And that's making it very difficult for me to get people willing to do judging, because they don't like to either give that kind of a rating to someone. And quite honestly, I've got a person that when it comes to when they want to submit something for judging, again, I'm going to have to find a different judge other than myself or the people that done his judging before, so that he'll feel that he's not being singled out, or that just so he can get a sense for how consistent you have to be to get something to get into an achievement award level of model judging. So I'm kind of throwing it back to you guys now, just to kind of hear what some of your experiences have been with that kind of thing.
Yeah, don't all speak up at once.
It's hard.
It is. And I think part of it is putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like, I come back to the old adage, and this is something I learned a long time ago, is people look at model railroading as an antisocial hobby. So you're not necessarily prone to putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me being me, I'm weird and I like putting myself out. But it's also a question of what do you want to show? At least that's what it seems like to me. Like, what you got to play to your strengths. That's what it seemed like.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter really what your strength is. As long, to me, it seems like if you play to your strength, you're good, because it's your strength for a reason. God, I really wish we could have Jim's feedback here, because this would be.
Yeah.
He was there for a little bit, I thought.
He is still in here listening, I know that.
You could type into the chat thing if maybe, I don't know what his settings are or not, but that's a possibility. So, have any of you fellows had models being judged?
No, I've never done it,
Okay.
but I've seen IPMS, International Plastic Modeler Society, judging,
Okay.
and that's as or more controversial than NMRA judging.
Wow. Okay.
That really gets people's feelings up at the plastic shows about the judging.
Well, there's no question in my mind when a person puts a lot of effort into any kind of a project, and then they put it out there, like you were saying, Dylan, you put it out there, and then all of a sudden someone sees the glue smears or the fact that the paint ran or something like that, and all of a sudden it just becomes more of a challenge. Now, the other piece of that is then you can also realize, okay, what do I need to do to avoid that kind of thing happening the next time? So,
yeah, and in the plastic ones, it's a lot of stuff that people start off with a kit and they throw a ton of aftermarket at it.
yeah,
And it costs them a fortune.
Oh yeah,
But then they don't win the award after they spent $300 on aftermarket, and they wonder why. And while it's basically your landing wheels are misaligned and you have a seam in the fuselage and the rest of it. So no, you're never going to win, no matter how much you throw at it.
Yeah, until you see what you still need to do.
Yeah, until you get the basics down, you can't win by just throwing money at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like that in NMRA, but in the plastic stuff it is.
Well, I think when you get into more critical and achievement award evaluations, you do get that.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did in Central Indiana Division, and I'm talking 20 years ago, and I still see this in MRA meets too, is they have first, second, and third awards. And we did away with that, and it's not because we believe in Montessori, but it's not, you're really kind of you're building to a standard. You're not building to be number one. You're building to a standard. So we wanted to acknowledge anything that anybody accomplished, but that also doesn't mean that, and you could still give away a first, second, third prize, but it may not qualify for an achievement level model. So.
Yeah, but I've never been judged, and it's been like 20 years since I read the NMRA judging guidelines for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I don't know if it's still at, for locomotives, do you still have to carve it out of a chunk of brass, or that's how it read at the time, like 30 years ago. You bet it basically had to start with your own chunk of brass.
Well, for the NMRA locomotive category, there has to be a very high percentage of scratch built. Yeah. So, you could carve it out of a piece of brass or bend it, solder it, or you could use, quite honestly, PVC pipe if you're wanting to build a steam engine. If you wanted to. But if you look in Model Railroader monthly magazine, you'll often see articles that people have built their locomotives for the Achievement Award, and they're almost always little 44-ton switchers or little box switchers. So their shapes are easier to accomplish, but even then they still have to do a lot of scratch building, have to do a lot of detail. They're allowed, I think they're allowed to use commercially manufactured wheels or and gears. They don't have to cut their own gears, but I think it's expected that you probably have to make your own truck side frames from whatever material you want to make them out of. So it gets to be a pretty big challenge. So,
yeah.
Mm.
And there's a chat message here from Jack. He's trying to figure out his video and audio. So I don't know, Dylan,
Yeah. So sorry, I have to figure out my video and audio settings. Not a big deal, Jack.
Okay, so he's
Um,
hearing us though. Yeah.
So he's done quite a bit of contest judging as well as AP evaluations. And he has a few quick notes. Glue marks, structures, seams not tight, decal film, crooked decals, or lettering.
Yeah.
Those you basically got to be the way I always took it when it comes down to a contest model is you basically got to be spot on. If you're not, to me, now this is just me because I like taking criticism from people. And Jim's rejoining. Maybe we'll get his video to work.
He's in here twice now.
Hey, he's showing video and audio on mute. Let's unmute him.
Dylan, can you hear me?
Start the video. He has to start video. Why can't I just do that?
Dylan, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jim.
I can see you guys too.
Good.
Woohoo!
I finally made it on my cell phone. I gave up on the computer. I can't figure out what on earth is happening there. And the iPad wouldn't work when the computer wouldn't work.
Double whammy.
Well, it's not the end of the world. But, you know, let's be honest, technology seems to want to kick our butts tonight. I mean, the whole password thing was news to me, and I'm the guy who set up the meeting, so I got nothing. I got nothing.
Hey, I understand. I understand.
Sounds like Jack has done either achievement level modeling or entering, because he's talking about in his chat that looking for freight car underbody parts missing or deductions for conformity. Yeah. So.
Well, I judged several years ago, got called in to judge, and I was using the sheet
Matrix.
and going by the sheet, and that's what I judged the models with. And the biggest thing we found out was the fact the person putting in all the details and that did not write it down on the sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do, you need to put on the sheet to inform the judge what you did that's unique to that structure or car. And we judged some beautiful models, but we couldn't give them the credit that they deserve because it wasn't on the sheet.
Yeah, that
So that's the biggest thing I saw that was missing.
Conformity
Mm-hmm.
Requires documentation to explain.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know what it's supposed to look at it, and things like pictures of the real thing to go along.
Yeah, more information, pictures, whatever to help you out to compare the actual with the model. That's what brings up the points.
I agree.
Because most of the models that are submitted are good. They're not going to have a lot of glue running or sloppy paint work. Otherwise, they would have turned it in. But that's the biggest thing I saw.
So I think it's pretty clear. If you want to basically have a model in a contest, you need everything. You need documentation. You basically need to have all your notes. You got to have everything you did with the model down, because if you don't, they're going to look at it and go, "Hey, wait, this is on it, but you didn't write it down." Well, you have to write it. It seems to me that you have to write it down. If you want to be counted for it, it's say that you did it. Yep. If it comes down to your research, it's what's your prototype? what is your end goal. So basically, you've got to document the process from start to finish, from research to build. You got to document everything.
Right. And the best way to do that is at the very beginning of the construction of the item. You know, mark down as you go along so you don't forget that stuff when you go to have it judged. So you already have your sheet marked up of what you did to the model. And then it's easy to transfer it over to the write-up sheet for the judging.
Yeah, I think I probably spend
Oh, yeah.
almost as much time in research for a lot of projects, especially locomotives before I'm building them, as much time in research as I do in actually the building. So, and then of course part of that research then is writing down that information so I can explain to someone down the road what is that little bump on the back of the long hood. You know, it's like, well, it really is something there. I've got some Atlas C30-7 locomotives. They're 6-axle jobbies, and Santa Fe had a number of those that they put a radio control cabinet on the back top of the back hood. It has little vents on the side of it, and so I added that. And then there's a little toilet vent in the cab roof, and for that I just took a little piece of styrene. I don't know what size rod it is, but then just shoved it against the side of my soldering iron to make a little mushroom, because it has kind of a little cap on it, and just mounted that into the cab. But it's a detail you just rarely notice or see, but if it's in my model, it's there. And part of the conformity part for an award would be providing the photograph of that in a real locomotive and explaining then what it is.
Yep. Good.
The thing that I hear more than anything else about the achievement program is no one wants to do the paperwork.
Yep.
If it wasn't for the paperwork, you'd have a lot more people entering the achievement program. That's what I hear. When I was going through it, what I did was I used to have a pad by my workbench. And whatever I did, I would make a note that I did that. If I soldered something, I wrote it down. If I glued something, I wrote it down. And by the time I finished that model, all I really had to do is go back over that little note, those little notes in my notebook, and I could easily fill out the form. It was just no big deal at all. But if I didn't do those notes, then once the model was finished and I was going back over that paperwork without any notes, that was more difficult for me. So I got in the habit, and I still do it to a degree now. If I'm building something, I'll make notes to myself of how I'm doing it and what I did, because it was just the easiest way for me to get a model with a merit award. The other thing, when I started out, we didn't have the prototype stuff. We didn't care what the prototype looked like. All the points went to scratch building. And then some people out in California said, well, we need to take some points away from scratch building, and we need to put them into the prototype. And that's how the prototype came as part of the paperwork. Well, what does prototype mean? For me, it meant pictures. So I used to try to find as many pictures of whatever the model was I was going to build as I could. And if I couldn't find any pictures, then at least to get 1 or 2 or 3 points off of it, I would talk about, well, I built the building in the same way that a carpenter would have built it if it looked like the prototype, but I don't have a prototype for mine, but the structure is the same. The building materials are the same, blah, blah, blah. And, sometimes they'd give me a couple of points, sometimes, most of the time, but everybody laughed. But, I'm a freelancer. I don't model a specific prototype. So for me, I had to make up those points that I lost either in scratch building or in construction or in one of the other areas and I just would blow off the prototype in a lot of cases because I just didn't have a prototype for the model that I ended up building.
Yeah, I think freelancing, you're always at a little bit of a disadvantage in that particular area because of that. But you're still trying to make a real piece of rolling stock or a locomotive or a structure that would be found somewhere along some railroad right away.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
I think it's the greatest educational program that I've ever seen as far as model railroading is concerned. If people go through it, I mean, I know I learned a tremendous amount.
yeah, right now I think we're all at a little bit of a disadvantage because there are virtually no meets scheduled around here for the judging would even be available.
I tell you this, talk to Frank Coach. I think that he has made arrangements that you can do it digitally. So if you got your model, but you need to talk to Frank. He's the national AP guy.
Right.
But I've heard that, and
I'll check with him on that because I have certainly corresponded with him in the past on other concerns and issues. So that'd be.
It only makes sense. I mean, if we're not going to have the meets and everything, if you're going to have a judge model, you're going to have to do it digitally.
Yeah, that's makes sense. And there's a lot of potential for losing the ability to see some details with that kind of thing. But again, that would actually also kind of get around the issue of like maybe not having anyone qualified to do judging in a particular area, division, or region too. So that's kind of an interesting thought.
Absolutely. And it also eliminates a person having to take their model to a specific meet or to a specific regional convention.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just frankly scared to do that, I found.
Yeah.
I was the achievement program chairman for 3 different regions of the NMRA.
Okay.
And a contest chairman in 2 regions. So I've heard, I think, every logical and illogical reason for not entering a contest, not getting involved with the AP. I mean, there's more reasons out there than you can shake a stick at.
Sure.
But at the same time, I always took the position, if you don't want to bring your model to a meet, don't bother with it. I'll come to your house. So I would go to the modeler's home and take somebody with me to have 2 people do the judging. And I'd judge the stuff in the guy's house. Whatever it took, as far as I was concerned. If he wanted to learn to build and he wanted to be a part of the achievement program, I always thought, then I've got to do whatever it takes to accommodate him.
That's a tricky area, though. Oh, I'm already on mute. That's a tricky area, though, because you get to someone's house and their model's not up to snuff, and it's not ready to be judged or whatever. Or it's not going to score well, and so how do you get it into a conversation that's going to get you out the door without being chased out with a shotgun or something? It's never been that bad. But I've been to more than a couple of places where I got in there, and basically we have a rule now that in the CID, if somebody's going to go do a judging at someone's home, they have to take another CID member along so that it's not just one person's opinion or whatever. But I've been to a couple homes, and quite honestly, the things that the components that were being evaluated were not up to snuff. One of them just wasn't. It wasn't as good as it needed to be for judging in another situation. um, the individual didn't have all the pieces. I mean, like everything that needed to be done. He was working on the scenery thing, and he had some of them done, and he had some of them in his head, and he had drawings of some of them. But there wasn't all the components that would need to be there to be judged, and so that really was fairly easy to kind of get out of that situation, to say like, hey, Jimmy Job, here you're getting it, but you don't have everything that needs to be evaluated to meet that particular certificate. So, you've got to have another piece of track work, or a couple other things have to be done in order to really even before we could even get to the judging piece. So,
well, it's funny. When I first heard about the achievement program, I had a Lionel layout in my basement, a huge Lionel, and I'd been collecting Lionel all my life. So I went to a train show and I bought some more Lionel. And on a table they had 3 copies of what used to be called the NMRA Bulletin. So I picked up 2 or 3 of them and took them home. And I read them, and it talked about this achievement program. It talked about master model railroader. And so I sat there and I thought, well, geez, I've been a Lionel model railroader all my life. That's a piece of cake. That's no big deal. I know pretty much everything there is to know about model railroading. So I called up the achievement program regional guy, and I said, hey, come on over. I want you to judge my model railroad. And so he came over and brought 2 guys with him. And one guy said, well, it doesn't look like you have much ballast. And I said, well, no, I don't have any ballast. I run Lionel. I don't ballast anything. And so, one of the guys started giggling a little bit. Somebody else said, well, you've got all these operating accessories, but, there's the rest of it's just kind of painted green board. I said, well, yeah, that's my model railroad. And so, they kind of laughed. And so they said, well, this is really not what a master model railroader we're talking about. And so they were kind enough to stay about an hour, and we had some coffee, and they explained to me what it was all about.
This sounds like one of my experiences. It really, really does.
And so, I didn't take it bad, because I thought, well, geez, that's what they're talking about. I got a lot to learn. So where do I start here? And so one of the things was author. I knew we'll forget this. I went upstairs. I told my wife, I said, well, I'm going to start writing some articles. And well, she just burst out in laughter. You got to be kidding me. You're going to write an article? Give me a break. Well, now I've been doing it for probably 40 years. But back then, she didn't think that I could, get one even finished, let alone anybody want to publish the darn thing. And so I thought, well, I'll do author. And then I was into trolleys. I got my mentor taught me how to build brass trolleys. And that's really what saved me in the achievement program. Because the people back then, nobody was building brass trolleys. So I'd show up with a brass trolley, and it was just something kind of new and different. I scratch built 3 flat cars out of basswood, total scratch built, except for the trunk and couplers. And guess what? They were Lionel. Well, when those guys saw those Lionel trucks and couplers on my scratch built car, the laughter was just unbelievable. Well, and so one of them told me, he said, it's a nice model, but he said, we don't think a flat car is enough work to get an achievement program award for a car. So we're not even going to do that, but we'll admit that you got these 3 flat cars. Okay, fine. And so, it was kind of a rough start for me, I guess, but I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me in a way, because it got me thinking about, well, what do I really want to build? And do I really want to spend the time and effort doing this? And so then I started, winning contests and this kind of stuff. And it really helped me a lot. I learned a tremendous amount from those guys, even though they did hurt my feelings.
It's helpful for me to hear your story, Jim, because that's been kind of the experience that I'm experiencing with a couple of people that I've done some evaluations for. Because the thing is, their railroad makes them very happy. It brings them lots of enjoyment, but it's not really scale modeling, and it's not really ready to be judged or evaluated. And that was a hard thing for them to swallow when they heard that from me and two other guys. So it wasn't just my opinion, but and this fellow is genuinely interested in continuing with the achievement program, but the modeling piece is going to be a real challenge for him.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that it's worth it it's worth it.
Do you have the MMR yet, Jim?
Yeah, I got it back in 1990, 89, 88, somewhere in through there.
Great.
And, I'm the 7th person in the NMRA to get them all. I have every one of the Achievement Program awards from the Gold Spike on up. I've got them all.
Well, I have a very good mentor for me. One of the fellows that's helped to work on my model railroad is Master Modeler number 29.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic.
He's 90. I think he's 93 years old now. And it's hard for me to get him over here. He still loves trains, but he's running out of fuel at the end of the day. So it's hard to get him over here. But he enjoys it when he's here. And I would say on my layout, there's like 90% or more of the scenery is his work. And I'm in a 48-foot by 12-foot basement with another 12 by 12 area on the side of it. So that's a lot of scenery that he's done. There's one whole corner that I said he can't touch because I have to leave it for me to finish off for my scenery award. And quite honestly, I'm getting very close to having that evaluated. It's like a 36 square foot area that in HO that's to be evaluated, and it's going to have all the components of a railroad, and it has to have geography and structures and lighting, things like that. So and it's almost all done, ready to be judged. So my little house there that I showed earlier is going to be in there. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so happy for you. I wish you the very best. It's, it takes a lot of motivation to do it. It's not the easiest program, I guess, that they could have ever put together. But I guarantee you that if you go through it, you'll come out on the other end having learned things that you didn't ever in your wildest imagination think that you learned.
Jim, did you get to see any of the photographs that I had on the screen before you got when you got signed in?
I did not. I've been trying to fool with my settings, and I started out with this stupid computer. Then I went to my wife's computer, and I still can't get my iPad working. And I've given both computers. So I'm here with my cell phone.
Oh shoot! Okay, sorry you didn't get to see them.
Don't worry, they should show up in the recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why we got recorded.
Great.
I really appreciate Tom you doing this tonight. Because I think talking about the achievement program is really important, and a lot of people kind of turn their nose up at it and so forth. But I'm convinced it's one of the great things about the NMRA. In fact, when I I got my MMR. An hour later, I joined as a life member. I figured, I'm going to stay for it. I'm glad I did now because it doesn't cost me any money anymore.
Looks like someone's getting ready to put up their photographs or something.
Yeah, Russell. Hey,
Russell.
it looks like your audio's working now too.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm on my cell phone, so it's very awkward.
I can appreciate that.
I'll just, here's the only photo to share. It's a wooden tank car I'm using for a fire car. And I just built it. And
What'd you build it out of?
it's from a Trout Creek kit. It's an SN3 model. I model SN3. And it's a pretty good little kit. They're still available on from one of the vendors.
Is it basswood, or what did you make it out of? What's it made out of?
It's all basswood. You build a flat car and then you build a tank, and add all of the most of the components are included in the kit.
Yeah.
I put PBL trucks on it and Katie couplers.
Well,
That's it.
that's kind of a neat way to get more points from like a flat cars to have a load built into the car. Because we had a fellow that scratch built a flat car, and he did a nice job with it. And it was not Lionel, it was HO scale. But if you look at the matrix, if you're using the matrix when you're doing your evaluation, there's not enough complexity to the model to bring up enough points to make it hit the achievement award. I think it would be really a challenge to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's an issue. I have a 14-foot flat car that's, I drew the plans for it because I helped rebuild the real one, narrow gauge. But I've got to put brake rigging on it and all of the little detail work on it. Hopefully Jack Hamilton will get some credit. We'll see.
It wouldn't surprise me that you'll get an award for it. I mean, have enough points to get a merit award for it. It used to be, like I say, years and years ago, flat car. That's what everybody's not. It's not complex enough. Don't bother with it. That's changing though. That really has changed, and you'll see some of the flat cars that people have really spent a lot of time and effort detailing. And really super detailing. They get an award with a flat car.
These are the plan. Here is the plans, and then I'm cutting out the structure. This is actually the way the thing is built. And
see that kind of detail for the judges. That's just so important.
Yeah, well, these are the little pedestals. Those are the castings. And it was kind of fun building the darn thing. There were 3 of us rebuilt it down at DuPont.
Yeah.
This is pretty close to the finished model. I got to put the handrails on it and some nut and bolt castings along the sides.
Do you have the underbody, Joe?
Not yet. It's a very basic. There's a brake staff at each. And it's just manual brake system with the outside hangers for the brakes, which I have, and I'll mount those. I fortunately have all photographs of one of the cars at the DuPont Museum that has most of the components still available or visible. But so there's another version of this that has a roof on it and is used as a tool car with a build that up just for so.
Going back to the flat car, I used to tell people, if you're going to start in the achievement program and you're going to go for the cars, first build yourself a flat car and have it judged and see how many points you get for just the flat car. Because if you can get if you can really understand the kind of detail that it would take to get a flat car approved as a merit award, then if you put bodies on it, whether it's box cars, reefers, cabooses, tanks, whatever you put on top of that flat car, the hard part is the underbody and the detailing of the basic flat car. After that, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah, well, if I put all the detail, I'll have probably 40 hours in this little car.
Mm.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Jim,
Anyway.
I've had mixed messages on how you handle a load on a flat car or a gondola. Some people say you only evaluate the car itself and not the load.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. That's how I would look at it. It's you're really going for cars. You're not going for the load necessarily. Now, when I say that, if you put a tank on it, it becomes a tank car.
Yep.
If you put a caboose on it, it becomes a caboose. If you put a combine on it, it becomes a combine. You know, are those loads? Well, you know, no, I don't think so, because they're separate cars. But if you're putting some logs on a flat car, you know, I don't care how good the logs look.
Well, I do think that fire tank car, the tank is part of the car in that model that you showed, Russell.
Oh, sure. That's an easy call.
Yeah. Now I've seen flat cars that people have said, well, we've converted them. So it's really not a tank car because we've got a house part over here, and here's the blacksmith stuff here, and we've got this and that and so forth. Now, if they can make the argument and they've got some kind of a basis for it being not a flat car, but a blacksmith car or some other kind of car, that to me is different. It's like the water car. That's not a load. That's a separate kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, those become MOW cars.
Yeah. But again, for me, it all starts with the flat car, because the flat car, I've always thought was a tough one, a really tough one to really do well. But if you can do it and understand it and have spent the time and the effort to really do a nice job on a flat car, then the other cars that you're building, you're really just putting boxes on top of that flat car in a lot of cases.
One car I think I may try to scratch build is a West Side Lumber Company tool car,
Yep.
which was basically a flat and then the box on top of it, but there's an awful lot of detail on it.
Right.
And it definitely has to be scratch built.
I think that'd be a gorgeous.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say tool cars are great because you get to add a lot of details.
Yeah.
Either scratch built or even commercial parts, but there's a lot of detail that you can add.
A lot of modifications are made to those cars too.
This is what I'm working on lately.
Ah,
All right, that's
This
nice.
is a side. This is a second side to a Union Pacific automobile car.
What scale are
cool.
you doing, Russell? Or Peter?
That's O scale.
O scale. Okay.
That'll
O-scale,
probably
yeah.
be Proto 48.
Mhm.
Oh,
ah,
Done. But right now I'm working out the details for the ends. They're kind of a dreadnought end, dart dreadnought end.
Mhm.
So I'm scratching that. Scratch building that, and then I also have to do the automotive doors on the other end, which is going to be a challenge.
That'd be
how
a
are you
nice
going to build
model.
those dreadnought ends? I mean, that's a lot of shape.
Yeah, it's a lot of shape, but if you start off with like a triangular or a circular hemisphere,
Okay.
You can sand it down on the ends and work it, but you just have to work every single rib
Wow.
as you go along.
You go there, Peter. You go there.
I'm working on it. I got the profile cut out, and I'm just sizing up the strips for it. I may have to go to a styrene that's glued down and then create a form like a scraper and then scrape it in with plaster to get the right profile. Because I'm trying to match a drawing that I found in a railroad cyclopedia.
I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
about the only place you can find those kind of details.
It really is.
That's a nice scene there, Russell, on your computer. That was a neat
Oh,
looking
well,
thing.
I just took it off.
I know.
That's what,
It's nice though.
manipulating this on my cell phone is a brand new experience. Oh, come on. That's at the upper end of my my layout. I don't know who's been here to see it at any narrow gauge convention, but it's the Coal Creek Lumber Company. And that's just a simple little blacksmith shed that I built using it to maintain these caterpillars. Now you see the cat here? Okay, come on.
Yeah, I see it.
That's a 3D printed machine.
Oh. Gee.
And those are really nicely done models. Somebody in Europe's building them in, well, they're suitable for both HO and even O, I guess, and S, of course. This is the equivalent of like a D5,
That's
or a little
fantastic.
bit smaller.
I think I know who you're talking about when you I've seen one of those before.
Yeah, I put a bunch of them up on eBay, and I'm trying to get him to build somebody needs to build a carryall. You remember those things that were used in the Second World War and after, that they would pull behind a bulldozer with the cables and all of that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
I mean, nobody's ever made a kit of those.
Russell, what scale are you modeling?
This is SN3, S scale.
Okay. Nice looking lathe back there in the shop too.
Yeah, that's an HO scale lathe from is it Keystone? Karen made it, and so I just added it into this building. This little building was kind of fun to build.
Like the
It's a
wall
nice-
stone.
It's a nice looking scene.
Yeah, it
The whole
is.
thing.
Oh, thank you. On the left of it here is a Wild Models. It's one of the little warehouses, but I like the clerestory roof up here.
Yeah.
So I converted it into a car maintenance building. I can probably find some other pictures of all of that. Let's get out of here.
You model in S scale, right?
Yes. Now, how many are you from? Let's see, Tom, you're the OS guy. No, it's Peter. I was wondering if he's seen Michael Connell's layout in Covington. Chooch, he's a Proto 48 guy.
Probably not. Maybe online and stuff. I model in just about every scale above HO.
That sounds familiar.
Let me get a wheel set for you. Just hang on.
We've got some Proto 48 guys here in Indianapolis, and one of them, all his track is hand laid and has tie plates with spikes in the tie plates as well.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Well, Mike, as you know, built O-scale kits. And he cast a lot of his roadbed with the tie plates and the ballast and all that in 6-foot long epoxy sections.
Wow.
It's it's pretty interesting.
I don't know if you can see this, but this is a
Oh
wheels
wow!
and axle.
Yeah.
Cool.
Itty bitty little flanges.
Yeah. Yeah, it's live steam.
Oh really?
Working on the trucks for that.
Now
Okay.
that
Wow.
that is something.
So where is Peter in Canada? What's AB? Alberta?
Yeah, that's Alberta.
Yeah. Yeah, here's the bearing brasses. I haven't shaped them
That's a
completely
pretty
yet, but
thick
the
bearing.
arch bars bolt into the notches.
Unbelievable.
And then there's going to be phosphor bronze bearings in the hole. And then the wheel will run kind of like that. So I still have to make the springs for the trucks.
Now that's a whole nother level of skill. I mean, I know we say that, you know, guys who model in the small scales are good, but that's a totally different level of skill set that you need, and that's impressive.
That takes forever.
There's one guy in my division, he modeled in Z scale and got his MMR that way.
Oh.
It's off to him.
Well, you know, there's some really fantastic modelers in G scale, no question about it.
Yep. Here's a shot of my upper end of my layout at Tiger Mountain. So this is actually around the stairway down to the family room. So it's kind of a challenge to build.
That looks really nice. Really
You build
nice.
your own trees?
Say again?
You build your own trees?
No, well, they're kits. Let's see, shoot. It's downloading from OneDrive. Well, all right. Let me go back. Sweetwater out of Florida made a really nice tree out of mesquite armature.
Yeah.
And with the fiberfill material to build up the netting, and then you put the flocking on it and all. And but the fir trees and pine trees are from John. Good grief, down in California. John McKenzie.
Yeah.
And you can find him. Well, he's advertises in the magazines, but he builds really nice stuff. A variety of evergreens, of course, and then he does really nice job on the good grief. What the hell are the trees in Colorado? Oh man, aspens. Yeah. Jeez.
When we still had the ON3 coalition up here, every once in a while we'd head off to BC to go find sagebrush for trees.
Oh, very good. You know Tom Beaton?
You bet. Yeah.
Tom is a good friend, and his work with trees and forestry, all that is just incredible.
Yeah. He's wonderful. He shows up at our train shows once a year.
Yeah.
We also had Rick Reimer from Selkirk Scenery.
Okay. Well, he does. He does a great clinic on trees and understory and all of that. So he's a lot of fun as well. We've got a nice cluster of guys out here in the general Seattle Northwest area, and a pretty good narrow gauge community, actually.
Yeah, they used to have the narrow gauge meet in Burnaby there. It was just
Yes.
a one-day thing.
Hmm.
I went to that a couple of times.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, if you guys want, if you want to be patient, I can show you some other stuff. Come on here. Let me show you a video. This is going around my stairway up to Tiger Mountain.
This is fantastic.
Tiger Mountain is a community where the logs from the individual cutting areas are assembled, trains that will come down to the mill. There are several other support structures here, including a commissary, repair shed, cars, blacksmith shop, and a couple of residences. There's also a stockyard up here where sheep are transferred in the spring up into the mountains for the summer, and then they are returned in the fall to the lower lands.
Those mesquite trees are really quite unique, and they are enough different. See the one right here?
Yeah.
No, that's a piece of my layout. We're going to do a convention up here in Tacoma in 2022. So assuming that the world is back to normal by then, invite y'all up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if the world's not back to normal by then, I don't know what.
It won't make any difference.
Russell, that showed up amazingly well for your using your cell phone, taking an image of your computer screen. That really worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pleased that I'm chagrined that I wasn't able to sign on with my computer. Yeah, this is working pretty good. The darn phone is getting pretty hot with running this video. So anyway,
It's cool. I'm glad you shared that.
That
Well,
is
Dylan-
really nice.
I think you might
Yeah.
want,
Very impressive.
I think
thank
you ought
you.
to wrap it up, Dylan.
I think you're right. We have been basically going for, wow, almost an hour and a half at this point, gents.
I know. Listen, I got
So-
one announcement I'd like to make, and then thank you so much for coming tonight. I apologize for my problems with not being able to figure out how to get my computer working, but maybe next time I have better luck. What we're finding is that these are kind of popular, even though we may have some technical difficulties from time to time. So we're going to start doing these on Wednesday night and Sunday night. So our next one will be, instead of a week from now, it'll be this coming Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Mm.
is that
And we got Eastern Standard.
okay, that's 4 o'clock here. That's great. We have a Wednesday night get together at 8 o'clock our time here.
Okay. So the guy that we're going to feature in this one is from Spain. And he makes what he calls paper humans. And he makes them in different scales. I've built some of them. And he's been kind enough to design some for some of the articles that I've written. One with firemen in it, and one with motorcycle riders in it. So he's going to be talking about that and showing us how to build some of these. it's amazing to me the kind of detail that he gets in these figures, and frankly the reasonable cost of them. So I hope you'll be back and see that. And other than that, we will see you Wednesday, and then we'll see you the following Saturday with somebody else.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you all so much for
Thanks for
coming.
letting me be there.
Jack
Take
has
care.
something for us to show us here. Jack has got a bottle.
This is a sneak preview of my latest kit release. This is the Rockport Freight House, Rockport, Massachusetts Freight House in N scale,
Oh, wow.
and hot off the press. Actually, it'll be released within 30, 45 days.
What's it made
Nice.
of?
This is all laser cut basswood.
Basswood. It's a nice model. You gonna make it any other scales but in?
Previously came out in HO.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's the HO version, and this is the little sister.
Got it.
Jack, do you have a website or a company?
IpswichHobbies.com. IPSWICH. Ipswich. IPSWICH.
Okay.
IpswichHobbies.com.
I'll check
Thank
it out.
you.
It looks good.
Thanks.
All right, but that should do it for tonight, gentlemen.
All
Well,
right.
thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Dylan,
guys.
Dylan,
safe.
give me a favor. Give me a call.
You got it.
All
Thanks for Tim Nab for putting me in touch.
right. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Tom, for presenting.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah,
My
thank you, Tom.
Really appreciate it.
It was excellent.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
You too.